Today I'm going to change. Previously I preferred to discuss about C Python and the code development of Python, but today, I don't know why, I'm going to discuss about Django, and mainly from nightmare to a dream, because I think I'm not alone in this case. Not with best practice, because best practice is just subjective, but with good tools, just that. It's my biography. I'm a Python freelancer. I love open source. I live with open source. I'm the organizer of the Python FOSDEM, another conference in Brussels, in Belgium, a small contributor to CPython, a fellow member of the PSF, and I received a Community Service Award the last year, and I'm also the organizer of EuroPython. And you can see a lot of stuff about me on Python. When you start, my job is just, I'm a freelancer with Python. And when you start a new project for a company, sometimes you can see, you hope you will have a very good project with the best standard and everything. But in fact, it's not the life. It's just, it's not true. For example, in my case, and because I know that with some other project, sometimes they use a old version of Python. In this case, that's just Python 2.7. Sometimes they use a very old version of Django 1.8. You need to know that the last version of Python of Django is 1.11, and the support will be stopped in a few years. Sorry, excuse me. But for this version, the support will be stopped in April of the next year. Of course, because we will use a old version of Django, sometimes the dependencies will be deprecated in the future, of course. We don't support them. Or mainly, there's no maintainers for the old version of this package. Sometimes, we can have some projects where the database is just SQLite. I prefer to use Postgres, but sometimes we don't have the choice. That's SQLite. Sometimes, it's my life. I have a project with no test. 30,000 lines of code. Sorry, but no test. And when you have to refactor a source code, that's very difficult, because how can I change this part of this code without to break something? That's very difficult. We have no documentation. Oh, okay. Okay, that's very funny. No documentation, no test, and sometimes we can have the commands in Italian. Not in French, Italian, not in English. But the project is just an international project. That will be really funny for the community. Yeah, because there is no test, there is, sometimes we can find the dead code in the source code. You can grab it, and you will find this kind of stuff. In some project, we can have some asynchronous jobs. For example, you want to print a big report, a PDF file, but in fact, the system will receive the request from the user and will try to generate the PDF. If you work for an accounting software, for an accounting company, sometimes a big report can take the night, and that's very boring. There is no continuous integration and no continuous delivery. So, no API. And sometimes we need to export the data, for example, for a mobile application, and because in this case, for a ticket search application. And of course, there is no syslog. We need to receive some email with the exception on a mailing list. And the settings are just hard-coded in the source code. So there is no variable. No variable, yeah. It's my life, sorry. I think it's your life also, because I think I'm not alone in this case. And yes, we have small problem. Not me, but yeah, maybe. But my company. I love the cat, I don't know. So, and I think it's not the worst. In the past, I worked with a company where the version control, the system, was not Git, but Samba. Samba, you know, yeah. You have a team with 10 people, and they try to share the source code with Samba. That's very useful. That's the life. OK, we have a small challenge. This challenge, firstly, is just, how can I integrate a continuous integration server in the team? OK. Can we use the continuous delivery system? Maybe. We will see. Because there is no documentation, I would like to have the documentation. I'm going to show you a small system that we can use. There is no configuration. OK, we will change that. We have no test. I'm going to show you how to improve your test. Just create a test. Functional test, unit test, and whatever. We can write code, but that's really important to refactor the source code. There was a keynote about the refactoring. I think that's really important. Of course, we have the quality of code. When you take an old code from another company or from your colleague, sometimes the code is not, you don't have the right level for the code. I'm going to explain how to improve it. Of course, the profiling, the deployment, the monitoring, just that. I think we have a lot of stuff to discuss during this talk. Firstly, the continuous integration. Maybe you could use Travis. Who know Travis? Whoa, 10 people, yeah. But with Travis, you have a configuration file, just a YAML file, where you specify the language, the version of the language, the script for the installation of for your dependencies, and how to run the script, the tool. Also, you can use GitLab CI. It's also an open source software, and you can use it. And I prefer sometimes I prefer to use GitLab CI because GitLab CI, when you want to use it, you can run the CI worker on your laptop. For example, with Travis, you have a bug. You will commit everything, you push. Travis will get the new version from GitHub, and will run the job on the worker at Travis. If you want to add a new worker, or if you want to debug your worker, you can do that. But in the case of GitLab CI, just install GitLab CI on your laptop, Mac OS 6, Linux, Windows, and you could execute just the script and check if there is a bug or not. I think this tool is really, firstly, it's open source. Secondly, it's awesome. So for the documentation, in my case, there is no documentation. What can I use? Firstly, Sphinx. I like Sphinx. Sphinx is the project for the Python community. And I like it because we use the restricted text format where we can extend it with a lot of plugins. I'm going to show you a very good project, a very good plugin just for your end users. Used by the Python community, you have a lot of plugins, and of course you can extensible. It's extensible. You have another project, MKDocs. It uses a Markdown, and he has a lot of plugins. So I prefer this one. Okay, just my opinion. For the configuration, in the past, the configuration was accorded in the source code. Maybe you could use this project, Django.hand, or there is a lot of pattern where you will split the big file in some file, a basic file where you will specify the access right, the access right, the access to the admin web interface, and you can specify some specific thing in a local file. In this example, I have an ARM file where I'm going to explain the Postgres user, Postgres password, about, in fact, everything. And I have the manage file, just this example. Import .env and .env.tree.env, just that. OK. With that can be useful for you, because you have to change just the hand file, and you can send it to your server. For the rest, we have the test. How to write the test. It's not the topic of this talk, but maybe you could use unit test or PyTest. You could use Django test or PyTest Django, the mock or PyTest mock. And for the functional test, you can use Selenium and Behave. In this case, we have the TDD, and for Behave is the BDD, Behavior Driven Development, I believe. And Selenium is just a tool where you can make automation for with your browser. Example, with Selenium. From Selenium, I'm going to import WebDriver. I will launch Firefox. I'm going to the website of Pycon Ireland, and I'm going to take a picture, just a screenshot. Okay? For my team, I will come back later. Yeah, with this tool, we can create some. We can automate some action with the Django application, and of course, we can take a picture of each step in the scenario. With Behave, sometimes you want to write some tests, but your users are not developers. They are simply end user. Maybe you could use Behave and ask them to write a feature file where you will have a lot of scenarios. Scenario? I don't know. But from that, this is just a text file. And with this text file, you can give it to your customer, to your end users, and explain, okay, just imagine, you have a scenario, and you can log on the website. I would like that you create a new speaker, a new talk. You will assign the talk to the speaker, and please, could you make a screenshot? But you can do it with Python, but you will have a lot of Python code. In this case, just a text file. Of course, you can version it with Git. The text file, the Python code for the text file. Go on Pycon Ireland website. I'm going to use a driver, in this case Firefox, or you can use a Chrome, and just go to the website, click on the button with full schedule, and just save the screenshot. There is an error, sorry. Okay, now we have Behave alone, just alone, where we can interact with the website, but you can use Behave and Django. In Django, you will have the capability to use just the right URL for the website, and you can do a lot of things. But mainly, you can start to create and use the database. For example, you want to create a new user for your script, for your test, you can do that. Just that. Okay. Another feature is just with Behave, Django, Selenium, and Sphinx, you can have an updated screenshot for your documentation. For example, just with this extension, Sphinx Selenium screenshots. If you change the configuration of your Sphinx project, in this case, I'm going to explain the base URL for the project. And in your restricted text file, you can specify the path for the screen, for the view, and what's the name of the file, where do you want to save it. And of course, your developer and user will be really happy to have an updated version of your documentation. And in this case, you can provide a PDF, an updated PDF, or maybe print this PDF as a book for your customer. Okay. For the code coverage, there is two libraries. Firstly, coverage. Coverage is just a small library. When you pass in the source code, each line in the source code will be reached, and the system will store that in the memory and will create a dump, a JSON dump, And the system will tell you, okay, this line is not used, the red line is not used, the green line is used in this case, and maybe you can improve your test to check if your function is just tested. Yes, sometimes you can see the source code is just in Italian. Sorry, it's an international project. You have coverage, PyTest coverage also, and there is Django coverage plugin. For example, coverage just for the source code, the Python source code. But with this plugin, Django coverage plugin, you will have a coverage of your template. For example, you have a lot of templates in your source code, in your project, and you want to be sure that one template is just used. With this plugin, you will see the result. Okay, just that. Pycon is a small tool where you can get a difference between two code coverage results. You can have the result with coverage. For example, the scenario is this one. You work on master, the master branch. You want to create a new feature. You will fork. Okay? You will create a new branch. You work on your new feature. You will execute the test, the coverage, and you will get a new result for the code coverage. With Pycon, you can execute a difference between the coverage for master and the coverage for the new feature, and see if you have improved the test or not. For the test, sometimes with the last version of the version 1.7 of Django, for when you will execute the test, automatically Django will execute the migration script for the database. And sometimes that can be really boring and time-consuming. Sometimes I have a test with 2 minutes just for the migration, and in fact the test will take 2 seconds. We can use Factory Boy. Factory Boy is a very interesting library. For example, in the project, we use the fixture of Django. It's a big file, a JSON file, where you explain, okay, I'm going to have a model with some fields. This field will have this value, etc., etc. There is no editor for the JSON file, and that's very boring. If you have a file with 10 records, there's no problem. But if you have a file with 10,000 records, sometimes that's very boring to work on that. And if you had a new field, you have to change the file. That's very time-consuming. There is no tool for that. Factory Boy is just a small library that you can use it. And in this example, I'm going to create a factory just for the talk. An object is a talk. And where the title attribute will have a fake sentence. The subtitle will use another sentence with 12 words and a lot of attributes. For the slug, the level, status, conference, language. In fact, with this library, when you will execute, you will create an instance of a talk, you will get a talk with randomized values. And Factory is really useful. For the write code in refactoring, you can use Django extension. Django extension is just a tool where, for example, you want to know the URLs of your project. Django extension will come with a new functionality where you can see the URLs of your project. If you want to see a graph of your models, there is a feature for that. If you want to see, if you want to have a web debugger for a web interface for your debugger, Django extension will provide that. Do you know Workzug? Workzug with Flask. When you have a crash, we have a web interface for the debugger, but you can use that. If you have a crash in Django, instead of to have a traceback in the console, you will have the debugger directly in the web interface, and you have a lot of more features. with the tests, you can start to use PyFlake and PyLint. PyFlake and PyLint is just a linter for Python. And these tools can help you with, okay, this code is just a dead code. Don't use it. Can you remove it? This library is not well written. Maybe you can move the source code and change a lot of things. Radon is for the complexity. For example, you have a big function with 200 lines of code in this function. Radon will tell you, okay, there is a problem in your source code. Maybe you can reduce it and or just create some other function and you can use them. Virtue is another library where you can find the dead code in your project. Dead code or maybe the duplicated code. Because, you know, we are not really smart and sometimes we like to make a copy and paste from the source code. In this case, PyLint is really useful and Virtue can help us. If you like to use the new version of Python, Python 3.5 or 3.6, you can use MyPy. You can use MyPy with the old version of Python, 2.7, but in my case, I prefer to use the last version of Python. MyPy is just a static analyzer of Python, the Python source code, and it can help us with Django. There is some stub files for MyPy Django, for Django, and we can use it with MyPy. And in this case, the system will create a static analysis from the source code and will inform, okay, JSON is already defined, but the dictionary has an incompatible type at this line. Okay. If you want to rewrite or just sort the imports, you can use Autoflake. Autoflake is just a tool where it will analyze the source code and remove the unused imports. Sometimes that can be useful because, in my case, I've seen some developers, they like to copy and paste the source code of another developer because they are novice in the project, or just with Python. You have isort. Isort will sort your imports. You can configure it. For example, if you want to have one line for each import, you can use it. Or if you want to group them from this library, I would like to import this feature, this function, this class, and whatever. For the profiling, you can use Django Debug Toolbar. This library is very useful because you can have the time for the CPU if the project is just CPU bound, or for the database and for what you want. But for the database, I like because in a project, I've seen just for one page 1,000 queries in the database, and in fact just for 10 records on the screen. We don't know why, but for the developer, it's just normal. We have 2 minutes for a request. It's normal, but in my case, it's not normal. In this case, you can use Django Debug Toolbar. You can use Django Dev Server and Live Profiler, but I don't recommend it because it's only for Python 2. Sorry, if you like Python 2, you can stay with this project, but I prefer Debug Toolbar because it works fine with Python 3. But just for the presentation, you have in the console not the trashback, but just the time for the database and the profiling for the function. Just that. Okay? Yeah. There is unit test and there is PyTest. With PyTest, there's a small plugin that we can use, is PyTest profiling. PyTest profiling will add mainly one argument. It's profile SVG and durations. Duration equal to will show the two slowest function, two slowest tests in your test suite. In this case, we can see that this function will take 47 microseconds, and the next one will take 36 microseconds. just for a test. With that, you can see the slower test. Or if you are a purist, maybe you can use a C profile, but I prefer to have an SVG file instead of a C profile. And of course, with profile SVG, you can have this graph where you can see there is a bottleneck just there, a bottleneck. This test is just very slow. And if we follow the path, we can find the bad function, just that. Also, we have the profile SVG parameter, but we can use the C profile V model library. And the C profile V model will create a website where we can have this result. In fact, in this result, we'll see the number of calls for this function, the time for this function, and the cumulation, le temps cumulé en français, the cum time, just that. And per call, we can have the time for this function. Sometimes, if you want to make a profile, a test on your system, you can use that. For the debugging, you can use Django PDB. Why? In my team, when they have a bug, they like to use print, just print, or the logging model. Just that. And they are just before in front of the computer. I'm going to run the source code. Yeah. Ah, shit, I have a bug, sorry. And during 10 minutes, they like to print everything, the logs, and yeah, that's very boring. With Django PDB, when you have a crash, the system will show the bad line in the source code. And in this case, you can debug it. You can use Python and PDB, manage.py and test, just because you will execute the test, or Python manage.py test --PDB. These commands will do the same thing. If there is a crash, the Python debugger will start. And if you like IPDB, there is no support for IPDB in PyTest. Sorry. But you can use PDB PP. Okay? And yesterday, I just made a small animation, but I can show you how to debug with PDB in a small source code. I'm going to see. I have 10 minutes. Okay. Yeah, where? Oh, come on. Yeah, sorry. It's just an example. So I'm going to. I have a CSV file. I have my script. My script it just have an event class, get events function, and the main. Just that. It's not really difficult. Okay, and I'm going to execute PDB or IPDB in this case on the source code. For example, yeah, I have the source code. Imagine it's just your Django project. You can see the breakpoint. In this case, with the command break, the break command, sorry, there is no breakpoint in the PDB session. I can add a new breakpoint with break 9. 9 is the number of the line. I would like to add a breakpoint just there, at the line 9, self-date equals something. And PDB will give me a number for the breakpoint number 1, with the line and the file. Yeah, we can execute. We see that there is a number, just the number of the breakpoint. And with that, we can continue to work with the debugger session. For example, we will continue. I'm going to show the traceback, where is the source of the exception, in this case, just the breakpoint. And I can move in the stack trace. I can up or just down with this command, up and down. I can execute, I can see the type of a parameter, just, yeah. In this case, I'm going to see the type of row. Row is just defined here. I see that it's just a list, and with P, I'm going to see the content of row, the row variable. I can continue to move in the stack, and of course, I can down. I can come back in the stack. With down, the number 2 is just, I would like to move, I have the stack, I have my frames. With up, I'm going to up, sorry, I don't know in English, but I can move on the top with up, and with down, I can move on the bottom. But the number will give, okay, I would like to move with 2 levels in the bottom, okay? Before that, there was a solution. You have to write down, comma, comma, down, comma, comma, down, comma, comma, down, comma, comma, down. If you have a very big stack trace, that's very boring. But in this case, with just a number, that's perfect. Yeah. I continue my presentation. Yeah, of course. Okay. You can print the content of a variable, pdate, pself, pselfdict. In this case, I'm going to visit the self variable, and it's just a Python expression there. I don't know if you see there, it's a Python expression. You can start to debug with that. Of course, we can see a lot of stuff. Up, continue. We can see if you are in a function. With the args command, you can see the values and the name of each argument of your function. Why I show that? Because if you are a starter in the Python community, you will have a print statement in your function, execute just the script, and that's it. Just forget one thing. I would like to modify my source code and add a new print somewhere. But with the debugger, you can see everything. Up, while it's self, disable. We can disable a breakpoint. We can see that with the break function, the break command, the breakpoint is just disabled. We can continue the script, and the system will continue. Yep, we can enable the breakpoint, and of course, this breakpoint will be executed when you will execute the source code, the code. And now we can add a new command on the breakpoint 1. For example, on the breakpoint 1, when I will reach it, I would like to print the date and the name. Yes, thank you. And we'll continue the debugging session. And of course, we have the date and the name. And the breakpoint is just there. Now, I'm going to add a new command. Chip. Next. Okay. Sorry. I'm going to add a new command. Hey. Voilà. I'm going to add a new command, alias printdict is a new command for k and v in %1 items and print something. And this new command can be used in the debugging session with printdict. And from that, I can print the content of self.dict, self.dict, alias ps printdict, and etc., etc., etc. And now, I'm going to change the command for the breakpoint 1. And when the breakpoint will be reached, the command will be executed. Automatically, the system will print the content of self. Of course, we can add some condition. Condition 1, I'm going to execute the breakpoint only if this condition is true. In this case, the condition is the date variable is equal to x. If it's the case, the breakpoint will be executed. So, just, yep, blah, blah, blah. Of course, we can have a configuration file for the PDB debugger. So I'm going to continue. Well, yep, just a presentation. Okay, for the asynchronous job, we can use Celery, where you can have a beautiful interface. The web interface is just Flower. Celery can use Redis, RabbitMQ, and with that you can create a workflow for your job. Example, you want to create some report, you want to generate some report, you can use Celery. And if you don't like Celery, or if you prefer a light version of a broker, you can use Python RQ. Okay? So, if you work with a lot of dependency, maybe you can use PyHub and GitHub, because PyHub is just a tool, a service, where you can explain, okay, I will use these dependencies in my project. Could you keep me informed when there is an issues, a security issues in my dependencies, on when there is a new update of my dependencies. In this case, PyHub is really useful. And for GitHub, this feature exists since 2 weeks. It's new, a new one. For the deployment, we can use Docker, Docker Compose, and also Kubernetes and Docker Swarm. And if you have seen the last version of GitLab, GitLab 10, GitLab 10 provides the same support. You can use it for the continuous delivery. For the monitoring, in my case, we use just an email where the trash back. But I think it's not really useful because we cannot make some statistic or whatever. But I prefer to use Sentry. And if you like to have some beautiful graph, maybe Grafana. Okay. For the rest, we have Chinkan or Nagios. For the process management, you can use Supervisor D or just the tool from your orchestration server. When you have a crash, in my life, I'm sorry, it's not my case, but the case of my customer, when there's a big process for the business, when there is a crash, the customer will call my colleague, and I think we have a crash with the system. Can you restart it? In this case, no, the system has been restarted without any interaction from the developer. Of course, we can use an API, because in this case there is no API. I prefer to use Django REST framework. And if you want to use a single page app, in fact, no idea because this slide is very old, but I use Vue.js with Django REST framework, and it's a good tool, really. So I have some recommendation. Just Python is dead. Please use Python 3.5, and on my laptop I use 3.7, sorry. And you can read these books. Just this book, because that's very useful. This one is written by a friend, Ari Percival. This book can be paid on Amazon, but you can read it freely on the website. You will see this book is really awesome because from the first thing is I'm going to write a test to check if my website is running. For me, it's just important because in some companies, do you have some tests? Yes, we have some tests, but nothing works. Okay. There is another book, Two Scopes of Django. This book is a reference for me because you have a lot of good tips for the development with Django. And the last one is just Python testing with PyTest. I've read it the last week, and seriously, if you want to learn how to test your project with PyTest, it's a good reference, really. It's just my own opinion. For the rest, if you are using a tool, you can use Emacs, or Vim, Atom, Visual Code, Sublime Text, or Head. Seriously, If you want to use your favorite tool, use it. But, yes, use it. But please, configure it. Because Emacs is powerful, Vim, the same thing, Atom, and we have a lot of plugins. Please use them with a good configuration and the favorite plugins for the best development. And because I like PyCharm, and because there is a community version or a pro version, you can give a try to this tool, because there is the auto-completion, the code coverage, the remote debugging, the profiling, the virtual, it can manage virtual env. There is an integration with the documentation of Python and of your project. There is an integration with the type hiding from Python 3.7.5, an integration with Docker, and they offer some pro license if you work on an open source project, and you can have some discount. For example, if you go to the EuroPython or Pycon, they propose some discount. But yeah, please, you can develop with a good tool, with Emacs, Atom, Vim, Visual Code, but just use the right plugin for your code. Yeah, and these functionalities are just in the PyCharm. So, if you have a question.
Have you ever come across anything that keeps stats for test runs between CI deployments? It seems like something that would be very useful. I haven't been able to find anything.
I'm not sure to understand. I'm reading the text, sorry. About what? Test run and CI deployments. In my case,
just, benchmarking, just to see how your performance is over time.
Good question. Yeah, and this for Jenkins, for example, for the code coverage or just for the test, it will generate a GUnit file. It's an XML file, and from that you can see some graph. Maybe you can use it for some benchmark. And that's the same thing with PyCobertura. In fact, when you use coverage, you can generate an XML file, and you can make a difference between the two versions of these files, and you can use it for a benchmark, maybe for the performance or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, thank you.